The attacks against Vice President Kamala Harris continue, this time from former right-wing speechwriter and Wall Street Journal columnist Peggy Noonan. In an excerpt to the Journal, Noonan explains why she believed the vice president was struggling to connect with both the public and the power that be. The column reads in part, "She loves the politics of politics too much and not the meaning. When people meet with her, they come away saying that what she cares about is the politics of the issue, not the issue itself, but even as she's obsessed with the game of national politics, she's not so far particularly good at it." Oh, really? Wow, how did she get to be vice president? But anyhow, when she sought the Democratic presidential nomination in 2020, she spectacularly flamed out. Noonan continues by giving VP Harris advice on moving for the rest of the term. Now, let me just say before we sort of go in on that, I do want to mention that this isn't the first time that Peggy Noonan has gone out on a limb to criticize Kamala Harris. When she first did it, she was running actually in the presidential race. And what I find very interesting here is that at that time that it happened, she got called out on it. And she got called out on it pretty heavily. This is the first time she sort of peeked her head out to say something else. But before we talk about that, let's remember what happened the last time she wrote a hit piece against Kamala Harris. Let's take a look at this white-on-white crime that's about to happen right now.
Right-wing Twitter can handle this. I'll give them a second to get their tweeting fingers ready. Okay, here it goes. When you're a white woman and you're a Republican, there's just certain stuff culturally that you don't know jack bleep about. And you should keep your mouth shut when other people dance. I mean, what is that line in there about dancing to a drum beat? This to me felt tone deaf. It felt nasty. It felt personal. And it felt bitchy.
Okay, so I'm going to take a deep breath. And I'm going to try to stay calm here.
Please.
About Peggy Noonan. I have never been more disappointed in a woman that I thought I admired in my life. She said at the end of that, you didn't read the very last part of that paragraph, Nicole, because she said it's embarrassing. No, Peggy, I'll tell you what's embarrassing.
Yeah, I didn't read it on purpose.
Yeah, well, I'll tell her what's embarrassing right now. Listen up, Peggy. Here's what's embarrassing. A president that pays off porn stars. A president that pulls babies out of the arms of their mothers. A president who says he likes to grab women by the you-know-what. A president who uses the White House for campaign events. A president who praises white supremacists. And yes, even a president who can't dance, doesn't know how to show joy or empathy, and tries to do some kind of ridiculous arm thrust to YMCA. That is what is embarrassing. Kamala Harris is anything but embarrassing. She is uplifting. She is inspirational. She is strong and substantial, and she's going to be one hell of a vice president.
White-on-white violence. Wait a minute. But there's one more thing. I should have read this last paragraph. We could put that last graphic up, because I think this is important to get this also in this context. This is the last thing that we want to point out from Noonan's most recent piece. She says, "Let them say you look chastened. People would be relieved to see you look chastened. Let them snidely suggest you had previously hidden your serious side. You did. Let them say," get this, y'all, "you've been humbled." Lord have mercy, don't get me started. You should be. So far, you've got a lot to be humble about. You know, it sounds like to me she's trying to say, you trying to be uppity. Know your place, black woman. You're not supposed to be vice president. You're not supposed to know what you're talking about. You need to be humbled. That's why I wanted that white-on-white violence, clip to play, because I want people to see that this is clear, not just to me as a black woman. It's clear to any sentient being that is seeing everything that has been happening now from the beginning of Kamala's race, actually. You know, it's a different standard that black women are held to at every level of power in our society. Should we be surprised that she's being held to this different standard and in fact being told to be humbled. I have to agree here with the assessment that not only does that sound bitchy, it also sounds to me like Peggy Noonan doesn't know jack shit about what she's talking about. That's just my take on the matter. I guess I shouldn't have cursed and then ask the Reverend to take over. But Reverend Carr, what's your assessment of the situation?
I'm going to say this because I had to do this. We had a recent Colbert on. We were on once, and she said, I have to pardon myself. I need y'all to understand. Infinity Fellowship is on the cutting edge of interspirituality, and we're reframing what church looks like. And that means that the first foundational principle is that you are your authentic self. And we, as people of African descent who find ourselves in a country where we had to learn a new language, we had to learn a new culture, we had to learn a new religious and spiritual perspective. When you travel around the world, many languages have so many words for just one concept. We're extremely limited here. So every now and then, you got to drop something into the language to help accentuate what you normally would have had you had access to your original language. So there's no judgment in this space. I'd rather somebody be honest and tell me whatever they're telling me, and for somebody to put on and be inauthentic. So absolutely, I love it. I'm with it 100%. We're talking about the messages that we receive. I'm giving a Wakanda toast. I'm gonna give a Wakanda toast to that white on white crime we just witnessed. And I'm gonna give a Wakanda toast to Peggy Noonan. I'm gonna give it to you because at least at one point she mastered what we have been talking about, a common theme that has been here this entire show, and that is messaging. A kinder, gentler nation. Absolute, complete bullshit. Peggy Noonan came up with that, though, for Bush the First. 1,000 points of light, Bush the First. Wow, everybody got around that. Absolutely meant nothing in terms of action and proof for what happened in terms of people moving forward in our society at the time. If anything, we were set back, but she came up with that. However, we got to put it in context now. She's also involved in messaging now for the future because Kamala Harris is a threat. So by using language like she's dead, by using language like she's inadequate, by using language like she needs to be humbled. How many of us have heard that? When we were standing next to a white colleague and they say something really, really strong and really something that's full of content, and people say, oh, my God, I just love his bravado. Oh, I love his confidence. Don't you love him? When he's on an athletic court and he takes over the game and he butts his chest and he throws the ball down. White guys say, God, I love it. The minute we do it, oh, they're so arrogant. They're so cocky. They need to be humbled. As my mom said, and my dad said, we've used it a lot on the show. Son, when you open up your mouth, you put your brains on display. Peggy Noonan is demonstrating how she thinks and what she believes, and she's speaking to a population of people. We filter old Peggy Noonan into new old Peggy Noonan, and we see that this is also the same woman who predicted with absolute confidence that Mitt Romney was going to win the presidency of the United States, based solely on her personal observation of a number of yard signs in the state of Florida when she was driving through it. So always consider the source. When we're talking about someone like Peggy Noonan, who at one point was an excellent messenger, we also have to make sure that when we're talking about messaging, this is a powerful thread because she's not necessarily talking to us. She's talking to the base right now. And when she's talking to the base, she fires them up. So whether we're talking about Kamala Harris or we're talking about Joe Manchin, we've got to find some rallying cry here. Consider this, and then I'll turn it over to you because I know y'all have some great, I got to hear what y'all have to think is great. We think about something we mentioned here a minute ago about Joe Manchin holding everybody hostage with this $2 trillion Build Back Better Act. I ask a question that, of course, we can think about later on in the conversation, but what would happen if Chuck Schumer or Nancy Pelosi, they were holding up some Republican legislation? What would the MAGA crowd do? I think about Joe Manchin getting off that yacht and seeing those people in his personal yacht, and you could see he was visibly shook. If the MAGA folks were on the other side of this issue, Joe Manchin would be looking in the steam room and see people with a MAGA hat on. He'd be in church and they would shut it down in the middle of his prayer. So there's something about this concept of how far do we allow this poor messaging to go before we call it out and fix it.
Absolutely. And you touched on something I think that is so powerful. It's about the messaging and why she's saying it. I think it's important that people understand, Dr. Omekongo, that she's not just talking about Vice President Kamala Harris. And I really want Black people to get this. This is not really just about Vice President Harris. This is about the next Black woman. This is about saying, you don't belong here. This is about the Black women you guys like, because I know a lot of y'all don't like Kamala because you've heard a lot of misinformation and you've chosen to believe it instead of doing your own damn research. Okay? So what I would suggest is we think about this. This is an attack on Black women's power. That's what that is. And when we think about it from this context, it's time for us to stop acting like, well, you know, it's just another attack and it's okay because it's her and I don't like her. I think you need to think about the next Black woman. Think about the Black women that you do like. Think about the young Black girls that are witnessing how this Black woman is being throttled in public because she has the gall to be excellent at what she's done, has done something no other woman in the history of this nation has been able to do. And the next Black girl that's sitting there thinking, well, maybe I don't want to do that because nobody's coming out to defend her on this broad level. There's all of these attacks. Maybe I should not go there. Maybe that really is a place where I shouldn't be. What are your thoughts, Doc?
Yep. Well, I completely hear y'all and what you're talking about in terms of the cursing, in terms of you just got to say what you got to say. I think it was the philosopher Dave Chappelle who said sometimes you have to be profane in order to be profound. So yes, I completely get where y'all are coming from with that. Look, at the end of the day, this is the beginning. This is what they do. Have you noticed how much you haven't heard the term critical race theory in the news since the last election of Virginia and other places? Because they come up with a target and they stick with it. So education, critical race theory, that was the word to use. Now it's dropped. Now it's Vice President Kamala Harris, and she is going to be the target because she is powerful. So all of the stuff that happens normally within a presidential office or a vice presidential office, like a Simone Sanders leaving, that happens all of the time after the first year that these particular staff members are in office. That happens all of the time. You see situations where people talk about she's not being vocal enough. The vice president is not supposed to be out there getting in front of the president on everything. And imagine if she did. They would say she's the angry Black woman. She needs to get in her place. She needs to get behind Biden. So we understand that as it relates to them, she can't win for losing. We saw Tucker Carlson a couple of weeks ago talking about throwing out some of that birther stuff. Oh, she grew up in Canada. Oh, her win is historic he said her win is historic for reasons we don't fully understand. Really? So this is what they are going to do because they see where she is coming from. They see the power, and we need to rally behind her. Look, we can talk about somebody's style and so on and so, but in terms of their education, in terms of their merits, and of course they're throwing out all this talk about, sleeping the way to the top like actresses in Hollywood 30, 40, 50 years ago, throwing out that type of nonsense as if she didn't get elected in California, as if she didn't get elected to where she is right now. We have to understand that they are going to have a no-holds-barred approach. If we thought what they did with Obama was disrespectful and ignorant, now you got a Black woman who is a potential president. Exactly. It is going to come out in ways we have never seen before. One of my other issues that I have with Noonan's piece is that all of this talk about death is a serious problem for me. You can talk about somebody's campaign and style without throwing in, being dead and all of that, because people are trying to forecast things that we are not going to allow to happen. So Vice President Harris, and I don't think Noonan heard Vice President Harris this weekend talking about how she's going to be coming after folks on this voting rights legislation because she got put in charge of that as well. So if you think that she's, this or needs to be humbled and so on and so forth, you watch what she's going to be doing in the next few weeks and watch how we got her back because she ain't going nowhere.
Folks, back to our Roland unfiltered video in just one moment.
time to be smart.
Roland Martin's doing this every day.
Oh, no punches!
Thank you, Roland Martin, for always giving voice to the issues.
Look for Roland Martin in the whirlwind, to quote Marcus Garvey again.
The video looks phenomenal, so I'm really excited to see it on my big screen.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
I got to defer to the brilliance of Dr. Carr and to the brilliance of the Black Star Network.
I am rolling with Roland all the way. Honored to be on a show that you own. A black man owns the show.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
I'm real revolutionary right now. Roland was amazing on there.
Stay black. I love y'all.
I can't commend you enough about this platform that you've created for us to be able to share who we are, what we're doing in the world, and the impact that we're having.
Let's be smart. Bring your eyeballs home.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared. You dig?